What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. It is March 12th, so happy Wednesday. We are midway through the week, and we're just going to do a recap of the notable quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends that have been moving around in free agency. I kind of wanted to wait for the dust to settle a little bit and get some time to put some thoughts together on these guys, as well as just let the majority of the players get signed. So we're going to hop right into a screen share. We're going to talk about all the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends again, and just give you guys some thoughts and get you guys ready for all these new guys. Let's get right into it. We're going to hop into a screen share here. I got that pulled up for you. I'm using Spot Track here. This is a good way to just look at everything and kind of compare it to other players. We're going to start with the quarterbacks here, and Sam Darnold. Use the thumbnail video in this one, and Sam Darnold going from Minnesota to Seattle. He gets a 3-year deal, $100 million, roughly 60, or was it 55 guaranteed? So he gets a good chunk of this guaranteed, which is pretty cool for him. And then, just the chance to resurrect his career in Minnesota, and now he gets a lifetime contract here. So we feel pretty good about Sam Darnold securing the bag. Now, the fantasy analyst part of Sam Darnold to Seattle, we just traded away DK Metcalf, so that's a little bit of a bummer for Sam Darnold, but you get to throw the ball to JSN. You get to hand it off to Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and dump it off to them. The Seahawks have work to do to replace DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, though. So outside of JSN, there's really nothing else on the roster that I think would be a lock for starting, in 3 wide receiver sets or the 1 tight end. So we have to figure out who the Seattle weapons are going to be. They might address free agency, or they might address tight end and receiver in the draft coming up. I don't believe they've signed anybody, and I think Noah Fant's a free agent tight end. So we'll have to watch for that. But overall, I like this move for Seattle. Sam Darnold's only 28 years old. You're going to get very similar results, and you probably paid less money for a younger quarterback compared to Geno Smith. So I think the Seattle Seahawks trading Geno for a 3rd rounder was brilliant, and then for them to be able to just get their guy for the next few years here, I'm pretty excited about it. So hopefully they can do some damage in the draft, get him more weapons. But for a Seahawk fan, I think you're excited. And I thought Sam Darnold, man, he looked really good last year. And I don't know. Sure, a lot of it is Kevin O'Connell in the system and just throwing the Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. A lot of that will do some good for you, but I do think there's some talent there with Sam Darnold. So for fantasy, he's probably a quarterback 2 for Superflex, not a guy that I want as my top 10, top 12 QB. But I'm looking kind of like what Geno Smith did last year, thinking, yeah, Sam can do that, but we just got to get him, the DK Metcalf and whatever replacement. So Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. Let's talk about Justin Fields here, going from Pittsburgh to the New York Jets. The Jets, man, I kind of like this move. He gets $40 million. 30 of it was guaranteed, I believe. Yep, $30 million guaranteed, which is a good amount of money. That's basically giving him the starting position for this year. And if it doesn't pan out, then they're okay. But I think Justin Fields showed enough last year with Pittsburgh to warrant this contract. And who knows, man, the Jets could all of a sudden find themselves in a quick rebuild here. They still need some weapons outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. I do like some of the backup running backs there too, Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, but we need some receivers. Alan Lazard, Davante Adams, those guys are probably gone. I don't know if Malachi Corley is going to be anything for them. I don't know if Tyler Conklin's going back to the Jets. They do have a couple young tight ends that they like on the roster, but they're very similar to Seattle. They have their 1 stud receiver. They got their running back set. They just need more weapons. And it's a good NFL draft for a receiver in the 1st or 2nd round this year. Tight ends are pretty stocked in the 1st round and 2nd round this year as well. So the Jets and Seahawks kind of very similar. Obviously the play styles are different, but I think Justin Fields, man, for fantasy, he's going to be a QB1, QB 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. I feel really strong about him being a super flex QB2. And we'll see, man. This does hurt Breece Hall's value a little bit just with the running and probably less dump-offs to him in the passing game. We'll see about Garrett Wilson, though. I think Garrett Wilson getting the lion's share of targets in this offense from his old college quarterback, Justin Fields, could be a really nice thing for him. He should be probably better than he was last year. He was looking really good before Davante got there, and that just kind of, just unraveled. But I think the fantasy value is, yeah, we're drafting Justin Fields to be a low-end QB1. We're drafting Garrett Wilson to probably be a wide receiver 2. And I still think Breece is a running back 1, like a top 10 running back, but I don't think he's that top 5 upside that we saw a couple years ago. Those are really the only two starting quarterbacks that we should probably spend time on. Daniel Jones going to the Indianapolis Colts is interesting. Don't know what's going on with Anthony Richardson, man. He's got a lot to prove this year. And if he doesn't get it done, like we could see Daniel Jones starting games at the end of the year as they want to see what they got in him with that $14 million contract. Marcus Mariota did go back to Washington. I like that. He played great in that one game that I believe he started. Josh Dobbs back up in New England. Nick Mullins goes to Jacksonville on a 2-year deal. Zach Wilson, a sneaky one here, going to Miami. Whoever knows with Tua, I think this is a good upgrade for the Dolphins, just with the risks that Tua has. They've been whipping out Tyler Huntley or Skylar Thompson or whoever at quarterback. Maybe Zach Wilson can find a home here as a QB2. And then Jacoby Brissett going to Arizona, just a good veteran QB2. Now, the quarterback's still available. The big domino is Aaron Rodgers. We do have Russell Wilson available as well. I don't know what Russell Wilson's low because he had a previous really low average salary last year. But as of recording this, again, it's about 5 o'clock Central Time here on Wednesday, March 12th. I saw Russell Wilson was going to Cleveland to interview. So he might be Cleveland's starting quarterback this year amongst the Deshaun Watson woes and just the stink that's going on there with their QB room. But if Russell Wilson goes to Cleveland, that's fine. He's going to be a fringe quarterback too for Superflex leagues. And it's pointing to Rodgers right now either being a New York Giant or a Pittsburgh Steeler. The Steelers do not have a quarterback on their roster. They might have a backup there, but they don't have a starting quarterback on their roster right now. So Rodgers, probably the best odds right now are the Steelers. They just got DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and they got Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren's there. They might add a running back in the draft. That's kind of a fun spot. But the rest of these guys are just kind of backup fodder. We'll see if Trey Lance goes anywhere as a backup. Drew Lock looked okay. He's just a nice career backup quarterback here. Joe Flacco probably not getting a start anywhere. And then I do want to see where Jameis Winston lands. He could be a fun QB2 with the potential to start some games. But that's kind of the brief overview on the quarterbacks. Again, I like Sam Darnold to be a quarterback too for Superflex League, kind of top 15, top 20. And then Fields has the potential to be top 12, top 15. The running back market. And I just, before we get into it, I just want to say this is not like the greatest free agency class that we've seen. It was a pretty weak class. Najee Harris is the headliner here, so let's talk about him for a little bit. He's been a 1,000-yard back for 4 straight years with the Steelers. He is a volume running back play, and he's not going to wow you with a lot of the things that he does, but his ability to stay healthy is probably the best thing that we've seen out of Najee. So they give him a 1-year deal. The value is about $5.5 million. About $5.25 million actually, and the guaranteed, it was pretty much all guaranteed here, $5.25 million guaranteed. So I thought he signed for a little bit higher. I thought it was like something in the $9 million. So maybe that number's not correct, but it's a 1-year deal for Najee. The Chargers, man, like Harbaugh is just going to pound it with Najee Harris here. I still want to see if they bring back J.K. Dobbins or a receiving back. They did let Gus Edwards go, but as of today, you got to expect Najee Harris to get his 15, 16 touches per game. Be a bulldozer when they get into the red zone. He can catch the ball too, and Herbert's been known to dump it off a handful of times. So Najee does look like a strong RB2 option where he could get double-digit touchdowns. And who knows, man, he could maybe be in the best situation of his career playing with the best quarterback that he's played with and an offense that I think surprised a lot of people last year. J.K. Dobbins looked fantastic. I don't think Najee Harris is going to look fantastic, but those numbers could look really juicy once he starts racking up the touches. So Najee, a top 15 running back, I think, is in play for him this year. As long as, if they don't bring back J.K. Dobbins, if it's going to be a 1-2 split, that could change my mind. But for now, Najee Harris looks like a strong RB2 for fantasy, and more so in like non-PPR leagues where touchdown leagues and yards matter more. That's really the only starting running back that was available on the market. Ty Johnson goes back to Buffalo on a 2-year, $5 million deal. Samaje Perine, did you guys see that? It got leaked that he was going to Tampa Bay on some like 3-year, $24 million contract, but then Jason Light said, no, that's not true. He goes back to Cincinnati, which I actually kind of wanted him to go back last year, but he's going to be the RB2 there behind Chase Brown, just a solid veteran third down back that can block, do some short yardage stuff, but primarily a catching weapon out of the backfield. That's where he makes his bread and butter. So a slight ding to Chase Brown's receiving numbers. I think Chase Brown's still a really strong running back, a low-end RB1, a strong RB2 for Chase Brown. This one was really sneaky here too. Elijah Mitchell crawls to Kansas City, a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. Isaiah Pacheco just didn't look like himself at the end of last year when he got back from injury. I don't think they're bringing back Kareem Hunt, but we'll see. Elijah Mitchell could be the most talented back on the Chiefs roster. Of course, his issue is he just can't stay healthy. But if he does, just lightning in a bottle, maybe, if he gets a 14, 15 game season, there's a chance where Mitchell could be the RB1 for them. But we're going to have to watch the camp battles with Pacheco and see that Pacheco's either locked into a role, or if this is a committee, that'll be a big note when it comes time to it. Now, Javonte Williams, still 24, turning 25, goes from Denver to Dallas. And, Dallas has been the hot spot to pick a running back in the NFL draft for the last 2 years now. And they didn't do it last year. They're in a prime spot to do so this year. But if they can't get Ashton Johnson, Amarian Hampton, or one of the other backs, one of the Ohio State backs, they're going to go into the season with Javonte Williams. They might bring back Rico Dowdle, who I thought Rico Dowdle looked really good last year down the stretch. But for now, I'm not saying Javonte Williams is a starting running back for the Cowboys. On paper, he is. Don't know what's going to happen here. We could get one of these rookie running backs. We could get a Rico Dowdle signing, and they just say we're good. We're not drafting a running back. So there's a lot to unfold here yet. The good news is Javonte can be your RB2, and that's going to be better than any RB2 that they had last year. So in a way, I think this is a good move for Dallas. Still really young player, didn't really play well after he tore his ACL, MCL, but I think it's a good spot for both, for Javonte and for Dallas. Kenneth Gainwell, I didn't see this one. He snuck over to Pittsburgh here. I don't see the terms on the deal here, but just a solid backup replacement here. Catch the ball, blocking, special teams. He's just a good all-around guy for your roster. Khalil Herbert goes over to Indianapolis. He can compete for RB2 duties behind JT. A.J. Dillon's went over to Philadelphia. I didn't see that one. McNichols to Washington, Darrington Evans, whatever. Top running backs available, there's really not. J.K. Dobbins is the one that I'm keeping my eye on. Rico Dowdle, Cam Akers. I don't know if anyone's going to try Raheem Mostert. Miles Sanders we're kind of done with. I think Nick Chubb's still interesting, but he is 30. He's kind of used up goods at this point. He can be, a nice goal line kind of plotter back for you if you need somebody. Madison, maybe he'll get a deal somewhere. Yeah, not a very robust RB market. Looking for any other names that might stick out here. But yeah, the ones, again, that I'm watching for: Akers, Hunt, Dowdle, and J.K. Dobbins is the big one. So there's your running back notes. Let's look at the wide receiver position. And this was the one that had the most movement, I thought. Of course, the Jets got into trouble there. They had to release Davante Adams. And Adams goes to the Rams on a 2-year, $44 million deal. They released Cooper Kupp, I think it was this morning or yesterday. So we'll watch for that Cooper Kupp news. He's the next big free agent to fall, I would say, at the receiver position. But we're going to get Davante Adams, Puka Nacua with Matthew Stafford. That is a pretty fun duo to throw to if you're Matthew Stafford. Now, Davante's 32. He's going to be, a wide receiver 3 flex, I think, at this point. All signs point to Puka just having a breakout year, though. I don't know if Davante can still operate at a high level. He looked pretty good, though, with Rodgers last year. He's just not that stud top 5, top 10 receiver that we've known Davante Adams to be over his career. So for now, I'm still drafting Davante Adams maybe as a wide receiver 3. I did think the Josh Palmer was interesting. He's 25. He's a good outside receiver. He can, do the dirty work, and he's going to Buffalo. Buffalo did lose Mac Hollins to New England, but I think Josh Palmer here steps in. He might be their best receiver on paper outside of, Khalil Shakir. I think Palmer could play over Keon Coleman. If they're doing 3 wide receiver sets, you're probably looking at, Shakir in the slot, Palmer and Keon Coleman on the outside. And I don't know if Curtis Samuel's going to factor in more this year. If they bring back Amari Cooper, we'll find that out. But for Josh Palmer to be one of Josh Allen's top targets, I kind of like it. He's a bench play for best ball in dynasty leagues here. Not a guy we're starting, but I like the spot. I like the player. Darius Slayton goes back to the Giants on a 3-year, $36 million deal. There was also a 3-year, $36 million deal for Josh Palmer here. We're not drafting Darius Slayton. We'll see what happens with the quarterback spot. But I think Darius Slayton's a good player, just not someone that we can trust for fantasy. He's behind Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson caught like 90 passes last year. There's just not enough volume, I think, for Slayton to be of use. But he is a useful player in a football sense because he can do a lot of things for you, help stretch the field. He can block. and he's been there. And he knows the Giants well. So I like Slayton. Diami Brown getting a little bit of money here on a 1-year, $10 million deal with Jacksonville. I think he slots in to the number 2 outside receiver position opposite Brian Thomas Jr. They still have Gabe Davis there. So you're looking at BTJ, Diami Brown, and Gabe Davis as the top 3 receivers. So they need kind of a guy that can get open in the middle of the field. They also let Evan Engram go. So watch for, slot receivers or, smaller guys that can get open quick for Jacksonville on draft day. Not sure if they're in the Cooper Kupp sweepstakes, but we'll keep an eye on that as well. We're not drafting Diami Brown unless it's deep best ball or dynasty formats. Demarcus Robinson's going to San Francisco. Of course, Debo's out of town now. Brandon Ayuk hasn't been moved, so Robinson kind of slots in as like their number 4. It's going to go Ayuk, Pearsall, Jennings, and Demarcus Robinson, so not a fantasy factor. Pretty much everybody else on this list, not a fantasy factor. Hollins is going to New England. Don't really want to mention any of these guys here. We're not going to care about them for fantasy, but there you have the list. Let's look at the top available, though. This list is still pretty juicy. It's a lot of old dudes. Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks. Like, man, if that was your receiving core in Dynasty like 5 years ago, you were so stoked at what you had. But now we don't know where any of these guys are going to go. I think the one that interests me probably the most is Cooper Kupp. Diggs is coming off that bad knee tear. Keenan Allen maybe has one more good year in him to be a 70, 80 catch guy. Amari Cooper just didn't look healthy or like himself last year, so I worry about him finally falling off a cliff. These guys are all just veteran receivers that can be your number 3 or 4 for fantasy football. I just don't know if we're going to be excited about them. Cooper Kupp is the one exception here because I think if he goes to the right spot and he's the target leader, that could be a factor here. We've seen Adam Thielen have some nice moments in Carolina as an older slot receiver. And that's kind of what most of these guys are here on this list. I would bet Tyler Lockett goes to Las Vegas. Just not much else on this list here. I think Elijah Moore is interesting just as a younger player. But overall, the receiver market's pretty cooked. There's no young talent that's worth paying a bunch of money here. So it's all older dudes that will find roles as, a big slot or a number 3 receiver. Let's look at the tight ends here. A handful of guys. Juwan Johnson got the bag in the market here. The Saints gave him a 3-year, $31 million deal, 21 and a quarter guaranteed. I like it. Juwan Johnson's been a very talented tight end. He's 28. He still has some of his best ball ahead of him. And I don't know what's going on with Taysom Hill, or they also have, what's his name? Is it Foster Moreau? They use a lot of tight ends, but Juwan Johnson is their number 3 kind of receiving weapon after Olave and Rashid Shaheed. So I like Juwan Johnson there. Just a tight end 2 for best ball purposes. Evan Engram going to Jacksonville, though. That is the one. I didn't think Jacksonville would release him and Christian Kirk. I thought they'd keep one guy that can get open in the middle of the field. But Bo Nix maybe gets himself a little binky here. 2 years, $23 million for Evan Engram. Bo Nix has a low ADOT in the 7s. And I think Evan Engram can just feast in that range. You've got Cortland Sutton on the outside. I like the long game here with Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, and Devon Valley look pretty nice as well. Now you're going to add presence to the middle of the field, short area, for Evan Engram. And this is kind of strange because I thought the Broncos were looking exclusively at those tight ends, but they get a guy here that's 30, coming off an injury season. He's still got some good ball left in him. And I think Ingram's probably a top 10, top 12 tight end for fantasy with Bo Nix. Nothing really else to note here. Luke Farrell, Johnny Munt, Hunter Long, Durham Smythe. Some notables that are still unsigned. Tyler Conklin, maybe Gerald Everett. These guys are 30 years old. I don't know if any of these guys have, starting capabilities anymore, but we'll see. I think that's pretty much cooked at the tight end market. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So again, not the best free agency class. There was a lot of big defensive signings that I noticed. A lot of teams were hammering, whether it was the Giants or the Jags, they're just hammering defense and getting a lot of names, and just basically teams that needed bodies were able to get bodies in free agency here. But that's the primarily fantasy free agency focus. It's March 12th. I'm going to be releasing some NFL draft stuff soon. There's a bunch of stuff on the fantasyfellowship.com if you guys want to check that out. But I'm working on my prospect guide with, a bunch of stats and rankings and some blurbs in there. So I'll have that up hopefully April 1st. Otherwise, keep doing your research. Enjoy the free agency period. we're so close to the NFL draft. That's where a lot of the fun happens. And then we're on coast, man. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever you need. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace. Got me feeling icy.